welcome to In Depth. I'm Dike Rostant. We saw our next guest on a platform talking about a cassava pizza, and we knew we had to contact her to continue the conversation on flours and alternatives. So we're doing so now with founder of Your Gluten Free Companion, Shelly Inniss. Welcome, Shelly. Thank you so much for joining us. How are you doing?
Thanks for having me. I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm all right, thank you, but I'm curious. I want to fasten your business, please. Take us along your journey into removing gluten from your diet, please.
It wasn't by choice, it was by force. I am allergic. I wasn't allergic all my life. I had some form of an intolerance, but I only realized it in adulthood. I always had really bad asthma as a child. I was constantly in the hospital and not in school, and had skin issues. And I remember I started to feel sick a few years ago, and like almost every week, I was submitting an insurance form to my employer, and my parents got really worried, and they said, "Look, you need to get some tests done." And it turned out that I had an autoimmune condition. It also led to hearing loss, and that's why I am wearing hearing aids today, and I'm hearing impaired and trying to read lips, especially during COVID when people are wearing masks. But during that time, I realized that whenever I consumed gluten, I was struggling to breathe. And at one point, I was on steroids for about half of a year. The dosage was extremely high, and I was not sleeping. I took a sleeping pill, and it happened to have gluten in it, and I became paralyzed. I couldn't move. I was swollen and unsightly. I had joint pain that was excruciating. I wanted to die. It was awful. And it was at that point that I realized I had a gluten allergy. And the minute I removed gluten from my diet, I felt better. I have not had an asthma attack in years. I have not seen the asthma bay. My eczema has considerably been reduced. I am less fatigued. I am a lot healthier than I once was.
But, and thank you for that, but it makes me wonder though, it makes me ask the question, that move from an intolerance to an allergic reaction, it makes me wonder, is this something with the flours that we're getting now, something a little different in the process? Because it seems as though you hear that so many more people are allergic to gluten. Is it that we're now finding out, or that we now know what it is?
I think that people are now able to identify the source, because all along you're getting different effects. I wouldn't necessarily call it an allergy. For some people, I'll say an intolerance. And like a lot of my clients have autoimmune conditions, and when they remove gluten, they feel better. I'm not a doctor, so I can't medicate and say it's the flour. Not necessarily. It could be chemicals within it. I don't know. I just know this is how it reacts with me and a lot of people like me.
But, and you lead us to the next question, in the sense that you spoke about a lot of your clients. So it is one thing to say, okay, well, gluten is not working for me, so let me take it out of my system. Let me avoid it like the plague. But it's one thing to do that on a personal level. What are some of those signposts along moving from a personal to a professional project and taking people along that journey with you?
All right. So when I realized that I could not consume gluten, and gluten is in everything, it's in cereal, it's in our drinks, it's in malt. I can't even drink a malta. And what is Vitamalt? Sorry, that's when you're feeling sick. You know, you need a shot of vitamin B. No, you need an actual B12 shot, because I can't drink malt. But I noticed I started to feel depressed, and the price of gluten items in the supermarket was the biggest blow. First, I can't eat. Secondly, everything is expensive. And when I found something that I could actually eat, I used to clear the shelf. So if there are 5 items on the shelf, I take it off. But then when I got to the cashier, I was like, oh my gosh, I think I need to put back something. But I mean, in reality, that's not happening. And I had gone on a trip with a friend of mine to the US. And when I looked at the prices compared to what we were being charged here in Trinidad, I was amazed. I could not believe it. I said, if these things can be cheap here, I mean, actually, everything in the US is cheaper than in Trinidad because we import our items. But if the difference, the comparison was vast. And I said, look, let me try to make things on my own. I'm sure there are other people who are experiencing this poke in the eye from vendors, and maybe I could assist them in acquiring cheaper products. So I went about telling my friends I'm doing gluten-free items. If you know anybody who is gluten intolerant, gluten free, who could, utilize it, send them my way, and the business was born.
And you keep on saying something, and I want you to break it down, read and spell for us, because you said, well, the Vitamalt is one thing, but you said not even being able to take certain types of tablets. Is it that you walk with a magnifying glass, so to say, okay, let's see what you have in you, good sir, Mr. Tablet, or looking at, take me through that process of saying, okay, whether or not I can use this, whether or not this is something else, because sometimes something may be have gluten in it, but it might be called by a different name. What is your process like when you go into the supermarket to purchase stuff?
First of all, when I go into the supermarket, I can't go with my family, I can't go with any friends because I take forever. I read every single label. Just recently, I bought a can of, my mother's going to be upset with me because I'm buying a can of peas, but I bought a can of peas and the ingredients had wheat. And I was a little surprised because I'm accustomed using this particular brand, but this time around, they added wheat to the ingredients. So I literally examine every single label. I don't care how often I buy the product, I'm still looking at the label. You can find gluten, the label is not going to say gluten, the label might say wheat, the label might say tricali, I think. They're different. They're different words. Even something like maltodextrin that can have gluten in it. Caramel that can also have gluten. It depends on how it's made. Sometimes even they may use a corn base. Sometimes they may use a wheat base. It all depends. You have to be so careful. Even like, if you go to a restaurant and you're picking up barbecue sauce, most times when we go to the condiment section, there are no ingredients listed. So you're taking a risk. I can't afford to take that risk, so I don't. Eating out is very daunting, it is overwhelming. And when I first became allergic to gluten, I probably had gone almost a year without going out to eat. My friends would go out, I would probably order a drink. And I can't even drink alcohol. I'm allergic to that too. So I order coconut water. But the struggle, it is a struggle. It's real, and lots of people are depressed by it. And that's actually why I chose Companion to be part of my business name, to let people know you're not alone. There are other people who are just like you.
And we will continue along this journey with your gluten-free companion. We're doing so because there had to be some more light at the end of this conversation. So we do that on the other side. We're speaking with Shelly Inniss, founder of Your Gluten Free Companion. We'll return with more. Stay with us. Welcome back. We are going in depth on Your Gluten Free Companion with founder Shelly Inniss. And I really find that point that you made, Shelly, I appreciate it so much. You may be buying something consistently, but that doesn't mean that you don't get to slack off and not check the labels, because they might just slip in something. Especially if supply chains, there are issues all over the world, but saying, okay, well, we can use this to kind of bulk up the product a little more, use it instead of. But do you find more people or more persons approaching you trying to find out more, not necessarily to even purchase, but to find out more at this time that we're having these sorts of conversations about flour alternatives, gluten. What is your experience with that?
So far, I've had people saying they're curious about recipes and what they can do, what they can try. Not necessarily that they want to remove gluten completely from their diet, but with the shortage of wheat, how how best can they still enjoy their food and keep the costs down? What can they do? What can they try? And hence the cassava pizza. I remember I was having a conversation and I mentioned, oh, I feel like eating some pizza. Pizza is my favorite food. And I'm not supposed to have yeast, or if I do have yeast, it's supposed to be in a very small amount. So I personally needed to find a way to enjoy my favorite food, hence cassava pizza. And it took some trial and error to get the recipe down and on point, at least for me. And I was happy to share it with Trinidad and Tobago and the viewers on the Eat a Food channel.
And we say big up to Badawi, we've spoken to him before, but at the same time, you see that personality you
He's a
have, Miss
star.
Shelly Inniss. It's very bubbly, it's very welcoming, but I'm not sure how much you
You
enjoy that pizza for real, you know. But what I really
no.
appreciate, I'm telling you, no, because you're real selling, you gas up the thing.
I Let me tell you something. If he can, that camera was rolling. I don't know if he was trying to save me because I devoured it. I was like, I running through the door with this. I don't want to share. It was really good, and I had a colleague there with me as well, and Badawi. Badawi is so gracious. Badawi was like, "Look, I see you really enjoying this. Look, go ahead." He tasted it, and he was like blown away. And I wish we had his reaction on camera so that everybody else could see this is the real deal. This is not just a put on. This is not a put on, sorry. This is authentic. And I'm urging people when I'm going places sometimes, you bring cassava pizza. This is what I'm getting now. And I'm telling people, try it for yourself and see it's actually quite delicious.
My mother sprang along whole of blessed mention. Try it. You will like it. But what I really want to talk about with regard to that pizza though is the importance of being able to create recipes that may replace wheat flour without using an alternative flour, because you didn't take the cassava, make farine, and then carry it back into dough. So how
That
important is that? Because
process
I think
is
sometimes in terms of
tedious.
like grinding to make flour, that also jacks up the price, especially if it's a boutique outfit. So how does that factor into your equation?
All right. So I like what you said there in terms of the grinding and whatnot. That process, you need a bulk, a very large amount of cassava or raw material, and then you're only getting a very small amount. So if it could save you money, by all means, just eat the root crop, the root vegetable or the vegetable in itself. For me, being someone who cannot consume flour, and again, it's not by choice, it's by circumstance, I use alternatives, not just root vegetables, but I've had zucchini pizza. I've used plantain lasagna, as in literally not mashing the plantain, but just cutting the plantain because we have things to do. Cut the plantain, put on your topping and whatever, put it in the oven, plantain lasagna. You need to have spaghetti. You don't want to consume pasta or the price of pasta is expensive. You're going to the market or the supermarket, however often, pick up a squash, spiralize the squash and use that as your spaghetti. You could always find some creative way to get around using flour or to reduce costs.
And you say that, and I think of what we've had various dietitians say, even before we were really talking about flour, saying involving your children in it early, getting them being inventive, being creative, involving them in the process. Because if you help to prepare it, you're more open to eating it in the first place. But
Not
every
just
time we go
preparing it,
on that,
but growing it too.
definitely,
You have a
definitely.
kitchen garden. That's how I got into food. I from small, my mother's holding me in her arms. Oh, I'm so sorry to cross you. I'm, my mother's holding me in her arms, and I'm smelling that food, and I want some. I'm stirring with her, and I've been in the kitchen from as soon as I came out, and I haven't left. I believe that when you, as you just said, you involve the children from young, they appreciate food more often and better too, because lots of young children don't even like vegetables. When you take them outside and you say, okay, you plot out a space and we're going to grow some lettuce, we're going to grow some tomatoes, and they get excited and they're watering those plants every day or however often they need to water it. And they're reaping that and they can't wait to eat it. That's one way of involving your child and having them appreciate the food.
And what we want to do right now is involve your backdrop, because you have some pretty things behind you. So I want you to talk about them as well as the scope of your company's services, please.
Oh, sure, absolutely. So again, you were talking about alternative flours. I also do a gluten-free flour blend. It's not a singular flour. It's not just like sweet potato flour or plantain flour. It's a blend of flours which actually can be used as a direct substitute to regular flour. The method in terms of obtaining the final product will be different, but the taste would be the same. The texture would be similar, but the method in obtaining it will be different. I remember I had given someone who she bakes cinnamon rolls and she was curious about, the whole gluten-free thing. I met her at the Nandepco Root Flour Expo and I said, look, you can take my flour and try it. I want you to be very honest with me and let me know if you like it, if you don't like it. When she presented me with these cinnamon rolls, I tasted one and I passed one to my friend and he really liked it. He's not gluten free, he eats everything, he's a bona fide foodie. I tasted it and I really enjoyed it. And I asked him, can you tell the difference between this and a regular cinnamon roll? He says, no, but this one actually tastes better. I asked her, what was your thought process in using the flour? Did you like it? And she admitted she did not like it. She hated it. She detested it. But the taste was just as good or probably even better. And again, it's all about the method in achieving the final product. She's accustomed to kneading flour, rolling it out. So she had to manipulate the flour a bit differently to get the final result. But at the end of the day, we want to pick up that cinnamon roll off the shelf and eat it and enjoy it. And that's exactly what happened.
And the way you talk about having to manipulate it a little differently, and also talking about the importance of the word companion in what it is you do you just allow people to access your products and say go forth and conquer, or is it a matter of say helping them go through that journey? I didn't get it right this time, and then people are able to give you feedback, and then you say, okay, well, possibly you might want to tweak this or do this a little differently. How is it that people contact you and are able to engage with you in this manner?
You hit the nail on the head there. I live a life that is purpose driven. I live a life of purpose. And I'm not just about the business aspect. I'm about the companionship. I'm about you understanding that you're not alone. So if you call me, sometimes I speak to people for like 20 minutes or even longer. And I have other things to do, but I take the time because I understand it is a process. And it's very different when you're coming from the world of being in with regular flour. I can't even smell regular flour because I could drop them right there. I take I take each person, each individual. If you contact me, if I meet you somewhere, we have a discussion and I walk you through it. If you are having a problem with a recipe, like the same cinnamon roll person, I say, look, you're familiar with this. Maybe you should try doing a particular, tell me what you do, first of all, and try doing it this way and see if it helps. I'm not an expert. I don't know everything, but I do try.
And with that, we want to
And if I
thank you for
don't know,
trying.
oh, sorry.
And we want to thank you for trying. We want to thank you for working with individuals, founding Your Gluten Free Companion. Thank you so much, Shelly Inniss. And on behalf of the entire TTT News team, I'm Dike Rostant. This has been In Depth. Thank you for joining us.